Showtime at the Apollo can be seen following this KRON special presentation. Stay tuned now for Remembering Bill Graham.
All over the Bay Area, people are remembering Bill Graham. That's just what we're doing. A group of friends of Bill have gotten together, and in a very personal way, we're going to reminisce and remember this remarkable man.
He was very complex. He was a waiter, he was a survivor, a music lover above all. He was a philanthropist. Sometimes he was a bully. He made a lot of friends, he made some enemies. He also gave rock and roll a home. While we were running around being crazy, Bill was the guy with the clipboard and the watches on his sleeve trying to organize this madness. So Bill was a lot of things to a lot of different people, you know, but the one thing I think that we all have in common with Bill is that he was a great lover of music, and he was a success at what he did. He worked hard, maybe 200 years and 60 years, you know. He really stuffed it full of joy and hard work, and he was an intimidating kind of guy.
For me, as a son, but as well as everyone else who, our company is really an extended family. The family doesn't stop where the blood does. And that was a real key part of the way he dealt with things. He brought everybody in and made everyone feel good. He was the harbinger of common sense, and by virtue of that, a harbinger of consciousness, and a master of moments. You know, he just people's experience are so dictated by the intensity of a moment. And boy, did he provide some intense moments, you know. I mean, just for the situations he would bring in, the bands he would bring in, the places we would go to. I mean, the Grateful Dead in Telluride, Colorado, you know, 8,000 feet in the air, where the capacity of the concert was 10 times more than that of the town, but it worked. And this whole experience has been very special because I didn't realize the power and the love that he had until he died. Because everything that he instilled in everybody is there. It's in all of us that are sitting here, and it's coming out. And it's just an intense feeling. It really is.
I've been going back to some old interview tapes of him, having heard so many stories being frizzed around by friends and family and musicians over the past few days. It occurs to me that despite all of that and how great those stories are, the best storyteller still was Bill. And David's talking about him being a master of moments, and I admired him for not only creating moments, but also thoroughly, as a human being, enjoying those moments. He could stand back in the back of the hall and say, wow, not just I did this, but just wow, Aretha and Ray together. And that's what I liked about the man so much.
I think of him as as a friend and somebody that I worked with, and he also gave me a job at one point in my life when I needed one. But I also went through a lot of tapes in the last week and realized that somehow just through timing it worked out that usually when Bill came on the radio on KSAN over the years I was there, that I would sort of engineer for him and be his partner on the air. And I remember that when I would ask him to come up and do that, I would always sort of play the game and ask him what he wanted to eat. And he would have me out all over the Bay Area at 7 in the morning trying to find borscht or trying to find chopped liver that was done the way he liked it. And then he would come in and he would be like so excited.
Tana, beginning Monday at 5 on News Center 4.
I just feel very grateful to have known the man and to have been touched by his soul's conviction and his tenacity. And like Miles Davis, they both taught me don't play okie dokie and don't take any bullshit from anybody.
Graham is the only promoter that really understands the kids and is bringing in the acts that they really want and that are good for them. That's one of the things I dig about Graham. that he doesn't just bring in the successful acts, he brings in acts that he thinks will be good for the kids.
He was the first professional I ever met, I think, in this business. Real pro.
And Bill was there for us from day one, just about, you know, and it's, we missed the personal thing, the guy who understands us. That's what hurts.
If the object is to leave the world a better place and to have put more love in the world than you take, well, then Bill Graham was a huge success.
The best story he told me about his non-technical concept of life was that when he lived in New York, and he lived in one of these long flats like we have in San Francisco, where the front room's in the front, the bedroom's in the middle, and the kitchen's in the back, he had a little web core that had the hinge speakers. And he unhinged a speaker with his brilliant concept of providing music through his whole flat. And he's taking it down the hallway, and he only got so far, and he needed wire, and it was a Sunday afternoon, so he was going to make do. So he was looking around the apartment, and he had a lamp, so he grabbed hold of the lamp, and he pulled the wire out. And then he spliced it on, and he broke the wire off, spliced that one on, and he's going down the hallway, and he's tearing apart his appliances. And by the time he's to the kitchen, he's so happy. Now, the speaker's not even with him anymore. It's up the hall, but he has a wire, and it still has a plug from the last appliance. Without thinking, he plugs it in, the current goes back and blows up his web cord. And he said from that moment on, he decided never, ever to do anything technical again. And he ended up at some point having FM productions, and he had perhaps 100 different electronic geniuses working for him. That, I think, pretty much epitomizes his complete respect for those people that could do those things. And I think in that vein is the reason why there was always a Steve Killer Khan. He did all the things that Bill couldn't do.
You know, the interesting thing, I had a feeling that Bill had deep feelings, very deep feelings, great passion and great compassion. I remember one of the most, I think a great story, was when Mandela came to the United States, and he called Mr. Mandela, he said. One day he just walks in my office, he comes and sits at my table, and he, come over here close to me. So he's very intense. And then he says, Mr. Mandela's coming, and I want to take him to my home. I want Mr. Mandela to go to my place. And we began to work at, and he was very, and what he did, he went back to Nazi Germany and told the story after story of his family and what he had been through and the affinity that he had for Mr. Mandela. You know, he understood it, man. You hear me? Mm-hmm. Jerry, he understood that hurt and that imprisonment. So deep feelings, great passion, and great compassion.
And after he got finished with you, he called me up.
Oh, really?
And he wanted me to mass 1,000 drummers, you know, to bring him in.
Yeah, right.
You know, so Olatunji and I and
he had great deep ideas.
Who would think of that? You say, how many drummers could you put in one place? Do whatever it takes, you know. You know, and you know how he comes in on New Year's Eve as Father Time, or these kind of things. Who else would do something like that? He had the grand scale. When he was thinking, he thought big.
That's right.
That's like you said, he has a feeling, a real passion.
Right. Well, he thought big, but he also was so finicky about every little detail. One thing we're doing at the office is when he would go through his mail, thoughts would occur to him. You know, he'd say, well, someone else should handle this. And he'd get a yellow Post-it note, and he'd write your initial, like Q, see me, and then put it in his out box. And everybody the next morning would have on their desk all these see me's. My favorite one was just last week. I got a see me without fail. I'm like, yes, this is a great one.
That's more important than just see me.
Well, there was see me now, see me today, see me in a while. You know, there was a bunch of them, so we're going to make a poster of all of those. Yeah.
One of his favorite expressions is he likes to throw somebody the ball and see how far they'll run with it, and he loves it when people run with the ball.
When I got hired, he asked me what my background was, and the first question was he wanted to know if I played high school ball. That's what it takes to get hired by our company.
Remembering Bill Graham is brought to you by Double 99 FM Radio, who honors the memory of a man who touched so many lives in the history of rock and roll.
Bill was born to Russian immigrant parents living in Germany. His father died before he knew him, and his mother was killed in a concentration camp when he was 8 years old. Bill escaped Nazi Germany and the Holocaust with his younger sister.
My youngest sister and I, on buses or carts or walking, you just keep going. We got to Lyon, and she became ill, and cold, just malnutrition, and died there.
Eventually, Bill wound up in an orphanage in New York City.
What I would have to believe that upbringing did is creates an instinctive survival system and a certain set of principles of not wanting to be messed with. You're out there on your own.
His connection with his past was a driving force in Bill's life. When President Reagan visited the graves of Nazi soldiers in Bitburg, Bill organized a protest in San Francisco. A day later, his offices were firebombed.
You're in business 20 years, and this happens the day after Mr. Reagan's visit to Bitburg. I don't think there's any doubt as to what the connection is.
You mentioned, Cecil, his boyhood and escaping Nazi Germany. How much of Bill was that? Was that always there?
So much. So much. I mean, the survival aspect of it all. I mean, he got out of Germany with one less sister. He has four living sisters, and for the first 10 years of his life was in an orphanage. And at a certain point, at the true onset of World War II, there was a Red Cross worker who was willing to take he and the 63 other kids in this orphanage on a 3-month boat journey to America. Well, out of these 64 kids, only 11 survived. And he went into a foster home in New York and spoke French and German, and was adopted by a family who had a son that wanted to...
Couldn't speak English, could he?
Couldn't speak English at all. Was adopted by a family whose son spoke English but wanted to learn French and German, his foster brother Roy. And, but when he got out in the streets in the Bronx and in Brooklyn, he's a Jewish kid, but speaking in German. And so they don't know, so they kick the shit out of the guy.
Yeah, right.
It's okay.
Beat him up. And so that was a tough one to go through, and he would just work and get it going. Would go up to the Concord Hotel up in the Borscht Belt in upstate New York, and once he found the ways of freedom and capitalism, had a check cashing service for all the employees, whereby the employees would bring their checks and he would cash them for them, but he'd keep the change. So if you had 400 employees, he'd have about $200 a week, which then was great money. Plus he was running all the craps games in his room, and he would even have the performers like Harry Belafonte would sniff out where the action was, and it was in Bill's cabana.
Yeah. That's where the fighter came from.
Yeah, exactly.
The will to survive. And with that came the joy of things that went good, because he knew that life was the impermanence of life, you know. And so not only did he fight for everything, he was scared, you know. I mean, he didn't want it taken away once he had it. So if you didn't know Bill, like I said, he was intimidating, but if you knew him, you would say, okay, Bill, you got 2 minutes. Go crazy. Or you got 5 minutes. Go crazy on me. I can handle it. I can take the hit. And then after 2 minutes or 5 minutes, you say, okay, let's go out and go see Ruben Blades, or let's go, you know, down to this or whatever. And it was over. And it was like he could cut it off, he can turn it on. And he was a master of that, you know. And so he appreciated life once he got it, you know. That's true. That's a good thing to have, you know. It's
You know, I'm Jewish too, and we used to talk about it sometimes. And my family did not go through things to the extent that Bill's family did, but there was some common ground there. And then as we would do projects together, Bill was always very gracious about, after you'd done a project together or been at something together, he would send you a little something. You'd get a framed poster or flowers or whatever it might be. And for a few years, his greeting on the back of whatever it was that he had sent, or on the card, was, "We Yids got to stick together, cheers, Bill." So I have a series of those in my house on the back of things.
It was, yeah, it was extremely easy to make history with my father because he framed everything.
Hey, most of my walls got cheers, Bill on it, one thing or another.
Little pieces of white paper, you know, "Dear David and Alex, had to go to a show. We'll have a PF when I get back," and then he'll put a little asterisk and we'll be like, "Pillow fight," you know. So,
You know, Jerry, I still think that Bill Graham may, in my history, have given more benefits than any person in the world. He produced more, gave more, supported more. Now, I may be wrong about that.
No, you're right.
No,
I think you're right. I know. I played most of them. He was the antenna.
Yeah,
you know,
right,
and now we have to take up the slack because you know
exactly.
that's one of the things that we'll miss because he always had his ear to the ground to know what we needed. You know, and so he said, "We call up and say we need to do this. Let's do it." You know, that's exactly right.
He was talking about a benefit for East Bay fire victims.
The Indians, he would talk to Carlos and Grateful Dead, right there, like day before, he was on the phone.
Why do you think he did so many benefits?
Well, it was really important to him to give back. I think it goes back to his childhood. He was very aware of how fortunate he was. Even though he knew it was due in large part to his own hard work, he still really appreciated the fact of how much he had and how many, you know, how much the employees in his company had. And he didn't always do just the benefits that came to him, like the big dramatic ones, because he did a lot where people would just write in or call. The famous story of the Berkeley school bus, you know, that broke down to take kids to the daycare center, and he helped them raise their little, you know, $2,000. So people could come to him, and he would seriously consider every single request. And I know because I usually got all of those calls and letters. And he would say to all of them, "I'll work with you if we can figure out a way to do it."
That's right.
Always.
That's what he told me years ago when he did a benefit for us. Said, you know, "I'll work with you. You get the headliners, and we'll produce it."
But the funny part about his line would always be, "I'll run it for you, I'll stage it, I'll give you, but I won't get the talent."
Right.
Well, the next day, there he is on the phone with all the agents.
Famous last words.
That's right.
I won't.
Was saying that with Red and Roses, which put their own shows together for the most part, Bill would still somehow manage to help out, and he would offer his own home. And but in offering his own home, Masada, up in Marin County, you can have the house, all right? Do whatever you like, but I won't be part of it. I won't be there, you know? I'm just, I don't know what I can do for you. But by the time the event came on, he was out there trimming the bushes. He was out there checking the kitchen staff, checking the chinaware. And by the time the party was going on, he was a waiter again, which, of course, was one of his favorite jobs of all time in his life. So he couldn't stay away.
And yet, despite all these benefits, he had that early reputation from the, quote, hippie era of being a capitalist, you know, making money on the music. The music should be free, right? He had to deal with that a lot.
Well, he had to turn it into a business, or else we wouldn't be able to go into the next, you know, the next year. I mean, it was just it would be on a spiral downhill. It had to become a business. I mean, you can only do that a few times.
Sure, but it must have bothered him to hear that.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, let me give you an illustration. I remember one time we honored him at Glide, and he came upstairs. This was like about 8 years ago. As we were going in the sanctuary, and he put his arm around me, and he said, "You know, I really feel guilty about making money, but I got to make it," he said.
It's not the money.
It's the money.
In late '65, we staged the first benefit in the loft. It changed my life.
just like to say, you and thanks for the memories, man, you know. Really, you know. Maybe sometime, you know, you'll hear us. You know?
No, under those circumstances, never, sweetheart. Never.
Oh, man.
You take your attitude, Yo-Yo, and get out of this
no,
building.
hey, man, it isn't a question of that, man, you know.
The next time you say you to me, you wouldn't be wearing that jacket.
Oh,
you know?
man, you said
There are
it to
times
me,
when I don't
man,
like
you know.
the way I look. Somebody once showed me a clip of me tearing into somebody. I said, oh my God, what a yo-yo. That's life. It took a number of years for me to realize what the effect of my New Yorkese madness did to some artists. When this comes out, to me, it's just easy. I can turn it on and turn it off.
I think his reputation actually is a little bit more negative than it ought to be. Yeah, he blows up. So what? I mean, you got two legs. If you don't like it, walk away, you know, or whatever. And he's got a hot temper. But good Lord, the stuff that balances that just takes it away.
Mickey mentioned he could be a bully, and we've heard talks about, you know, we've seen clips about temper tantrums and so forth. And I'm curious, how about for his son? Temper tantrums? Yeah, rough, huh?
Nobody was outside.
Yeah, I think, again, the entire family has felt the brunt of,
really?
of that. He had a rocket in his pocket. I mean, he could just unleash it at any time on anyone with any sort of eloquence, from the harshest slang to the most philosophical waxing. I mean, you know, the problem was he was always right. I mean, he you know, very rarely. I think he was generally always right. His heart was always so big. It was the way he would execute you know, the way he would communicate with you, which would be make one want to retract. But the bottom line was, he was almost always right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ben, certainly as a journalist, you never felt that temper, did you?
Well, we had our explosions, but I have been telling people that although I had my own few encounters with Mr. Graham, that the loudest, by far the most ferocious tirade was behind closed doors in Jan Wenner's office, in which he took exception to an article by another reporter at Rolling Stone and spent 6.5 hours locked in with Wenner and Cahill, going through the story line by line by line, and on occasion exploding. But he also seemed to enjoy the process of having the writer there now, being able to challenge him on every point, because he was misquoted here and there. The worst misquoting was the very first one, in which a reporter wrote out the scene of Bill after the closing of the Fillmores going through a warehouse, and at one point coming across a piece of equipment and saying, supposedly saying, "Hello, balloon inflator, remember me?" Bill denied ever saying that and thought it made him sound real stupid. Couldn't believe that this so-called rock Bible would say that about him, because now when he would be going down the street in St. Louis or whatever, some kid would say, "Oh, look, there's that guy who said, 'Hello, balloon inflator, remember me?'" So he took exception to this, but with such style. While reading over the story, he would just try different ways of reading the line. Look, I can't, you know, this is not me. I don't say this kind of stuff. Look, how could I say, "Hello, balloon inflator, remember me?" It was like the actor coming out again. The actor in Bill Graham just trying the line to show Jan and Tim this was not me. And so he was always colorful, however he did things.
Yeah. I was in his office once, and we were talking about something, and he had a phone call from a manager of a very big act at the time. And he laid into this guy. I mean, I was embarrassed. I have never heard such language. And he's going and going and going, and then he says, "Wait a minute!" Puts his hand over him and says, "I'll be done, this is fun." Then he gets back on, and he starts going again. I thought, wow, what an actor. And he was telling this guy, by the way, "You've ruined your act. You've turned him into a teeny bopper just at a time when he was really going to be big." And he was right. It was Peter Frampton.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah. I walked into his office once, and he had his back turned to me. So I just walked in. I didn't knock, because I knew, you know, then he would know I was there. And then he was reading a book, and I looked over his shoulder, and it was The Art of Intimidating, How to Intimidate Your Friend.
No.
So I went around and I closed the book on him. And he didn't know who it was still, and I grabbed him around. I said, I put the I in intimidation. You know. And Phil turns around, and he's laughing, of course. But he was reading the book.
You know, I think anybody that was around Bill's office very much has seen the famous clipping that's hanging on his wall, How to Argue and Win. And I would imagine you'll come up with a copy of that, won't you, for this show, so that people can see what I'm talking about.
How to Argue and Win. Keep up a stream of illogical thinking. Employ fallacies, prejudices, and if you find that doesn't work, go heavy on emotionalism and inappropriate analogies. Be completely irrational and avoid facing the truth. This method so frustrates your opponent that though he may be completely right, you appear to have won. Signed, Bill Graham.
Ladies and gentlemen, a man who doesn't play guitar, but he gives great stadium. Please welcome Mr. Bill Graham.
There was one instance I remember. Phil Lesh and I went to the house. We wanted to go to Egypt. This was in 77. We went in 78. And we had these placards, these signs, and we said, Egypt or bust, PA's a must. We wanted a new PA, and we thought Uncle Bill was going to buy us a new PA. So we went there at night, and we shined lights in his window, and we woke him up. Okay, what's happening here? He said, Bill, we got to talk to you. It was the only time to freeze him. And you have to go on the offense with Bill, or else he'd eat you up. So we took the phones off the hook, and we sat him down. He's in his bathrobe. We said, okay, Bill, we want to go to Egypt. You don't understand, Bill. We got to go to Egypt. It's important. I mean, there's, you know, he said, you guys are crazy. There's a war going on. This is before the Camp David talk. That's why we got to go, Bill. We got to do something, you know? And Bill said, we were up till about 7 o'clock the next morning, and Bill listened to us rave like 5, 6 hours. And then, okay, I'll think about it. Well, then he called up Rock, or one of the guys, and he said, well, they got a great vision, you know, but they're crazy. We can't go to Egypt. No way. So we said, okay, Bill, we're going to do it ourselves. And we did. We went to Egypt. But Bill was big enough to know that he was really wrong. He came to Egypt. He paid his own way to Egypt. And on the last night, we played there 3 nights, he rented 40 horses and 40 camels. And when we got off the stage, we went on to, we all got onto camels and horses, and we rode out into the desert to an oasis, and we had tray races around the desert with 50 beers. And he enjoyed it with us. And so he wasn't so big that he didn't know that a good thing was happening, and that really meant a lot to us, because we always like to enjoy the high times with Bill, and he had one with us that time.
Winning was pretty important.
He was a competitor, whether it was one-on-one in basketball, you can tell the stories, or whatever, you know. He competed in life, and that was part of the, you know, that was part of his early, you know, the childhood.
He let you win?
No.
No, he played it.
He had his own rules when I was growing up, but the first time that I beat him in one-on-one, that was a very special day for him.
Really?
Yeah, it was.
For him?
Yeah, it was. He was really proud.
Yeah.
He was really proud that I could take him, because he prided himself on being a tremendously able defensive basketball player.
Yeah.
I know that day.
Yeah?
He came in the office and says, Ray, I'm finally getting old. David beat me. He's proud of him, but he became acutely aware of this fact that all of a sudden there's a new generation, because he was competitive.
But he, even, you know, he was 60 when he died. He was in incredible shape.
Yeah.
He still could play racquetball to the end, sweat through 5 games, play ball, get together for football after doing a day on the green for, you know, 11 hours. Go home and play racquetball. I mean, the boundless energy, unbelievable. I mean, he was an insomniac for a lot of years, and would have no problem if he wasn't in bed by 8. He was in the office by 9. You know, it was just incredible.
Yeah.
Bonnie has a really good story.
Make me do that one?
You
Somebody
have to do
else wanna
the
tell a
US.
story?
Have to do the US Festival story.
It's a couple of days before the actual US Festival is opening. You know, everything has gone haywire. The BGP staff has basically built this space-age stage in the middle of a desert in San Bernardino. They've planted grass, they have rearranged mountains, they've done everything that has to be done to bring this fairly preposterous and huge show into the desert. And everybody's tired, and the US Festival, the Unison Foundation people were very big on calling meetings. They had meetings about everything when everyone should be just working and getting things done. At the last minute, they wanted to have a meeting. And this was a meditation meeting at 7 in the morning, the day before the show. He's got $1 million acts calling with problems, and he's got to go to this meditation meeting. So they're in the meditation meeting, everyone's holding hands. And first they have someone do relaxation techniques. You know, relax the little finger of your left hand. And you can tell Bill is going crazy. He's standing there holding Peter Brassotti's hand. And, and they get all the way through relaxing your body, and the man who's leading the meditation service says, all right, now, we've had some problems in people getting along between the various forces putting the show together. I want everyone to close their eyes and imagine that they have a little notepad in their mind. And then I want you to take the little pencil that you have in your mind, and I want you to write the names of all the people that you've had disagreements with or problems or you've just felt tense about in this room on the piece of paper. Then I want you to rip the little piece of paper off the pad in your mind and crumple it up. And when you've done that, you can open your eyes and everyone will feel better. So a couple minutes go by, everybody opens their eyes, the meeting is breaking up, and Bill is still standing there with his eyes closed. Peter says, come on, Bill, we can go now. Bill goes, shh, I'm still writing.
Bill Graham is a driven man.
Yes, but driven about the same things that I was driven about 20 years ago, 30 years ago. I don't think it's ever been any different. Driven to retain a qualitative level, and driven to retain the rights to uphold my principles, whether they agree with yours or not. Yeah, driven.
Bill Graham's generous spirit lives on. Donations in his memory may be sent to an organization he was deeply committed to for over 25 years, the Haight-Ashbury Free Clinic. For information, call area code 415-773-9898.
3 years ago, he said, called me up and he says, I'm going to send you over 1,000 turkeys for Christmas. And I said, great. Oh, Bill, I said, what you have given me the opportunity to do is ask other people to give turkeys so we would have enough for 8,000 people. That was the first time we'd ever been able, we'd been putting chickens in the bags that we pass out right at Christmas, but no turkeys. He was the one who allowed us. So I was able to call other folks up about this, but he brought those turkeys from Iowa or somewhere. They were corn-fed turkeys.
We have a Christmas Day celebration, the Grateful Dead and Bill and BGP and some people. And I raised a turkey this year, the first year, and I came into the office and I had the turkey on my arm with a chain on him and a hood on him like a falcon. And I was holding him with a falcon's glove on him. And I was going like that. And I walked into the thing and I put the turkey on Bill's desk. And the turkey guy, he just takes a load right on the desk on a $100,000 check. You know? And Bill was going crazy, his eyes light up. The turkey leaps off the desk and he starts just crapping across the floor. And all the secretaries and Bill are running across the floor trying to kill him, clean him up. And Bill said, I said, well, this is for you, Bill. He said, well, what am I going to do with the turkey? I said, you're going to eat him. He said, go and kill him, you know. Bill couldn't do this, you know, so we had to go back there and slaughter him. And we had him, he was delicious. But, and then he sent me a frame, freeze frame, somebody was shooting this, of the turkey. So I have this big freeze frame, you know, like 5 photographs of this. And he tells the story all the time.
Yeah, we used to have the pictures of it with actually the feathers in the frame at 201 11th Street, which was our original office, right, which was burnt down, yeah. Which, I mean, that place, talk about the echoing of wails through the halls, boy, that place had such an energy, and it all came out of his corner. You
know, talking about his attention to detail, and also the fact that he would give equal time to no matter who you were. You know, it could be, he could be out on the line fighting with kids about ticket scalping as long as he might spend talking to a world leader. I remember going to a Journey show with him in LA, and we're very hungry after the show, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and we ended up at Cantor's. It was the only place we could think of that was open, and it's a big delicatessen, fluorescent lights. You know, you get that 2 o'clock in the morning feeling when you walk in there. The waitresses all have on those light green uniforms and hair nets. And we're there, and we're tired, and we're hungry, and we order. And I realized he's sort of staring at the waitress. And he calls the waitress over and he says, you were 13 years old, your mother worked in the kitchen at the Concord. And this woman had been 13 years old the last time he had seen her. You know, she was now 40. He recognized her through the hairnet and all of the years, sat her down, made her stop waiting on tables, and started telling her stories about the Concord. And it was great.
Yeah.
I agree with your right not to have to care. My point is that it would be somehow somewhat disappointing to the many people who think that you feel towards them the way they feel towards you, and that's the reason for your popularity. That's what they think.
Well, I don't want to disappoint anybody. I mean, tell me what I should say.
Good, I'm with you.
Huh?
Fine.
You know, I'll certainly go along with anything, but it's, I really don't have much of an idea.
Bill Graham was a strong supporter of education. If you would like to make a donation in his memory, call the San Francisco Education Fund at 512-1465. This nonprofit organization supports innovative programs in San Francisco's public schools.
I think everybody should keep in mind that he started out in theater.
I had this frustration about theater, and I met Ronnie Davis, who had the San Francisco Meme Troupe, and I spent a couple of years with that, and then we ran out of money.
Thank heaven for them all, no matter where, no matter who. Without them, what would little boys do?
Dixie Dwight, keep an eye on him. Keep an eye on him. It'll choke you up. Fantastic kid. He's coming in now. He'll become the biggest thing you ever.
Hold it,
Fantastic.
hold it, hold it.
Well.
This kid can't act.
I said, how you doing out there? Yeah! And to prove it, we're gonna give you some entertainment we know you're gonna like.
He accomplished so much. Was there anything you know of that he wished he could have done that he never got to?
Oh, I think that the one thing that he had never done, because before he got into rock and roll, he was in the theater. And, you know, he would always have a yearning to get back into it. He would do a lot, some bit parts with Francis in Apocalypse Now or the Cotton Club or anything. But when this opportunity came up to play Lucky Luciano in the Bugsy film with Warren Beatty, that was it. That was just it for that month or 2 months. He couldn't imagine playing a role more like himself than Lucky Luciano in certain ways, and really got into it. And I think that if he had lived, I think he would have pursued doing other things as well. I think he really enjoyed the theater, really enjoyed getting enraptured in another role, and he got to create a scene in this movie where he dances with a partner. It's a Latin dance on a boat scene, and. Boy, if that wasn't the penultimate experience for him to choreograph a Latin scene in a mobster movie. It was
right. You know, the producer came up to me at the funeral, and he said, he introduced himself, and he said, he was really himself. I mean, he really is a great actor.
Yeah.
You know, he said, wait, you see this, you know. He said, Bill was really there, and he really accomplished what he wanted to accomplish. It's too bad that he couldn't see it, but he finally did it, you know. He was branching out. As he grew older, he knew that there was a lot to life, and he wanted to live a life, you know, and not just be running back to the concert venues, you know. And that was the thing about that damn chopper, you know. It made it so easy for him, you know. Once he got the chopper, it cut all that time down, you know. And as he got older, he was pushing the envelope, you know, a little more. He believed his press clippings that he was a survivor. I have this problem too, you know. I mean, when they keep saying you're a survivor and you're here forever, you start believing it, you know. And he shouldn't have been flying that night. And as you get older, you start pushing it a little bit, you know. And that's the problem with that.
One thing he wanted to do, certainly, was to make this a better world for all of us. And he moved in that direction to try to make it happen.
I think anyone who ever went to any of his shows, whenever they remember that show, they remember Bill. And when last weekend there was a KFOG show, and the way they were deciding what songs to play on this tribute, people would just fax or call in any song that they had seen any group do at any Bill Graham show, and it just ran the gamut. There was just every kind of music, every kind of experience, live shows, tape shows, and I think that's how everyone remembers him. They all have their own special moment that he made possible, and everyone will all remember those.
I was talking to a friend, a former K-San disc jockey, Dusty Street, just 2 days ago, and I was wondering about Los Angeles. And I was wondering about Bill and his impact outside of our area. She said that she had co-hosted an outdoor concert on Sunday with the Doobie Brothers and Spirit. At one point, she stopped and said something about Bill and just waited for the reaction, and she said 60,000 people stood up and cheered. So that was a good feeling to know that it was far beyond just his home area, that other people respected him too.
If you take New York, I'm a San Franciscan, but to go to New York, I would think that the Fillmore East must have been as big as Madison Square Garden, because everyone I talked to had been thrown out of the Fillmore East by Bill Graham at one point, especially anyone in the record industry. That's how they knew Bill Graham.
Yeah. Remember, he was going back and forth from the east to the west. Remember, he'd taken the red eye back?
Well, the record year was 39 trips, I think.
Was it 39?
Yeah, I think 39 was the...
Now, that was, and working the
round
show,
trips.
getting on the plane, back and forth. I mean, this was jamming. I mean, you had to have, this is superhuman.
Right.
You know, superhuman strength. You know, and then he came back and he found I had 50 Hells Angels on the stage. You know, and Bill would go crazy. He said, what? I forbid them in this theater. I said, Bill, you know, you weren't here, and, you know, and some of them are my friends, you know, I mean, what can I do? You know, the big guys, you know. Bill would go, okay. Well, he lasted through the Hells Angel Wars. He lasted through the Nazis, you know. You know, he was a dancer, you know, and a dancer is the way you go through life. It's a metaphor, you know. Yeah. And he was able to dance his way through it all, you know, and that's what it's all about. He left a wide trail. Yeah.
You know, this was the first year where he had ever said to me he could understand how people could get sick. He said, for my whole life, I always kind of scoffed at people in my office who were sick, and really, he never did get sick. No. And finally, you know, within the last couple of years, he finally, like, let down a little bit on his disdain for people who were infirm in any way. And, you know, I think the thing that he didn't get to was taking time for himself, to relax, to not be acting, to not be flying, to not be going to shows. He would always say, yeah, I need more of a personal life. And that's what he never, ever took enough time to do.
But he was on the cusp of that, which was the sad thing, because he had been seeing Melissa Gold, who also died in the crash, and they, especially her to him, filled such a void in his life that he really needed, and they just started to really get together, and that was tough. Yeah. That was tough.
Well, I doubt if there's a person watching, a person who lives in the Bay Area who hasn't been touched in one way or another by Bill Graham, whether it's been to a concert or some connection had to have been there. What I remember about Bill, despite all of the flamboyance and all of his showmanship, was he was a real thinker. He seemed to think every single thing through that he ever did. And I remember he took pride in really thinking like 3 steps ahead, and I was standing with him outside a Day on the Green concert. I don't remember which one, but everything was going wrong. 70,000 fans are waiting for the concert to begin, and he said to me, watch, nobody will run on stage. My crew is instructed to always walk slowly. Don't let anybody think there's a problem. We'll just go until we get it. And I thought, wow, he thought all of that through. Mickey, at the memorial service, I thought you spoke eloquently about how he's still alive in a way. And yeah. I don't want to paraphrase your
there's
words.
A proverb that says that, you know, as long as people remember your deeds here on earth, and they remember your stories, and they tell your stories, and they speak of you, and they're touched by you, and they don't forget this, then you're still alive. You're not really dead, you know. I mean, because a piece of him is with all of us, you know, and then the mythology starts. Then the stories are told about Bill. God knows what it will be like in the next century, the stories about Bill Graham. You know, can you imagine, you know, how time amplifies? And so what we have here is, he was a legend in his own time. an institution, whatever you want to call it. And now he'll be mythologized. Just, we're doing this right now. You know, we're creating the Bill Graham mythology. And it will manifest into the next century and beyond. So, you know, he's not really dead.
Remembering Bill Graham has been brought to you by Double 99 FM Radio, who honors the memory of a man who touched so many lives in the history of